Welcome back to the final hour of KTN Sunrise Live, and this is also our final interview, but you do want to put down our contact details because you might want to send in questions. Our SMS number is 8040 and our Twitter account is at KTN Kenya. Our Facebook page is also KTN Kenya. Now, this morning for my final interview, I'm joined by Mr. Johnstone Kavuludi. He's only been in office for 10 days, actually 9, we counted them were 9 days, and is the chairman of the Police Service Commission. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you indeed. All
right, so perhaps you can begin by explaining what the PSC is, its mandate, and how it's been for you since you took office 9 days ago.
Thank you. I actually have been in office together with the entire commission for those nine days, during which we've done quite a lot of work. But let me start by saying that we're grateful that we received a lot of support from the government, especially the office of the president, the permanent secretary in that office, and the minister, to enable us to settle down, to do so far what we've carried out in those 9 days. Now, the National Police Service Commission is established under the Constitution, and the Constitution indicates very clearly that our role is the management of the National Police Service. Much more, it is the human resource function of the police service. We are not police officers, but it will be expected that one of our responsibilities will be to appoint persons to offices, recruit new persons into the National Police Service. We will also carry out promotions, transfers, discipline, among other functions. It is also our duty and responsibilities to carry out an evaluation of the current police service, the existing rules, regulations, the force orders which are currently in place, and to make recommendations, particularly on the senior appointments. In this case, I'm talking about appointments to the position of Inspector General, the 2 Deputy Inspectors General, and those which particularly call for the approval of Parliament before His Excellency the President carries out the appointments.
All right, and you obviously hit the ground running because 9 days later you've already put out advertisements in the dailies saying that you're looking for an Inspector General. Did it have to be so fast?
I want to tell you that it had to be that fast. In the first place, we've been appointed several months, close to a year, since we were interviewed for the positions of members of the National Police Service Commission. It was expected that from about October last year, we will be in office. And one of those responsibilities that we were to carry out immediately is the appointment of the Inspector General and the 2 deputies.
Right.
The Constitution does not envisage that we will delay, drag our feet in the process of making recommendations to His Excellency the President to appoint the Inspector General. Now, Kenya and the entire Kenyan public has been looking up to the appointment of the Inspector General, the 2 deputies, as an indicator that the reforms in the police service have started. So we'll be failing in our responsibility if we focused elsewhere. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you, the team that we have comprising the 6 commissioners of the National Police Service Commission have burnt the midnight oil because we thought that we will want to see Kenyans take us seriously. So it is for this reason, and considering that the appointment of the Inspector General and the 2 deputies will actually assure Kenyans that part of the reform process will be ensuring that they have in place rules and regulations that are in conformity with what it will take for the next general elections to be conducted in a peaceful manner, in an atmosphere where everybody feels secure.
All right. And I do have to ask, in your quest to be taken seriously, aren't you scared that you're going to end up shooting yourselves in the foot?
No, we're not scared. Although we have no illusions about this job, it's not an easy job. But since it is our responsibility, and we undertook it knowing that it has got risks, it has got a lot of challenges, we will not be shooting ourselves in the foot by doing the right thing. And we think we are doing the right thing.
Before we go into the criteria for getting the Inspector General, I think it's only fair for people to know what the chair of the Police Service Commission holds. What is your background and what claim do you have to this position?
I thank you. I'm by profession a teacher, and I've carried out other management responsibilities in the public. I've been in the public administration of education at the district level, at the provincial level. I've been in charge of a department at the Ministry of Education, managing the training function in the ministry. I've also been the Director of Manpower Planning and Development at the Ministry of Labour and Human Resource Development. And I was also the Commissioner for Labour at the Ministry of Labour and Human Resource Development, a position that gave me an opportunity to interact with the wider international community, particularly in terms of human resource management and also management of industrial relations in this country and outside, an opportunity to also interact with the International Labour Organization and also the African Union Labour and Social Affairs Commission. So that in itself is part of my background. All
right. You obviously have gone through this interview and been appointed by the president, and you have a wealth of experience when it comes to public service. But personally, do you feel that you are ready and up to the task?
Yes, I do.
All right. So let's get straight to it. The Inspector General, according to your advertisement, those seeking to be Inspector General must hold a degree from a recognized university in Kenyans, be Kenyans with knowledge and experience in either criminal justice system, policy development and implementation, finance and public administration, security law, sociology, or government. It's very extensive, and it doesn't end there. Those interested in the position must also furnish the Commission with clearance certificates from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, KRA, Director of Public Prosecutions, the Higher Education Loans Board, and the Credit Reference Bureau. How did you come up with these criteria?
Thank you. This criteria is not a creation of the Commission. This criteria is stated clearly in the Constitution. It's also expounded upon in the National Police Service Act. And so we lifted it from there. And before we went public, we also did a concept paper which informed us on the procedures, the processes, and we've come up with a toolkit that ensures that we are able to push the process through in a manner that is fair, a manner that is transparent, a manner that gives the public an opportunity to participate in this process. And in our search, we are looking for somebody who, in the eyes of the public, will be beyond reproach. Somebody who clearly commands respect from everybody, or most of the people, and clearly a good manager. Does not necessarily have to be a police officer, but it will be desirable if that person is a police officer, because this is professional. And that's why we're talking about criminal justice, that's why we're talking about security. However, a woman or a man who will be the Inspector General and whom we recommend to the President will need to be the kind of person we see as a change manager, a person who will be able to formulate policy, a person who will be able to give guidance and leadership. So this is exactly what makes us think that throwing this wide open and in conformity is what is stipulated in the law and backed by the Constitution, we'll be looking and certainly we'll find a Kenyan who will be able to fill in that position and fit there very well. Now, we know that there are challenges that are attendant to that. There is all the debate about whether it should be a civilian or a police officer.
Right.
But what is important to us is that that person managing that command of the police service will be a Kenyan of repute, a person that we think we can trust with the Kenya Police Service, because the Kenya Police Service is so important to this country. Our security, our safety, the safety of our property will be dependent on that man or that woman that will be given that opportunity. We do not know who will be applying. Otherwise, we'll have said, so-and-so is the best candidate. But we have our minds very open, and we'll be looking forward to those who apply to fit that criteria and give us an opportunity by explaining to us what it is that makes them feel that they are the best possible persons to be appointed when the appointment does come.
All right. Going back to the issue of whether or not they're a civilian or a police officer, I do understand that there's some senior police officers who are not quite happy with the possibility of being led by a civilian. Have you had any of these concerns?
True, we believe there are such concerns, but none has come to us to tell us, look, Commissioner, we're unhappy with this criteria. And I want to say this, change is not always one thing that is welcomed very easily. Change can be very threatening, even if it portends well for an individual or for a whole society. So somebody is bound to be comfortable, much more because we are venturing into the unknown. We've never had an Inspector General before. We've never had two deputies. And never before has there been a constitution that brings out the need to have those officers as the top command of our police service. I want to say this to those officers, and I've said it before elsewhere. Police officers who have done their job well, and they are renowned for doing that job with excellence, have no reason to worry at all. In fact, the assurance is that the National Police Service Commission is not coming into place or has not been appointed for purposes of removing them from office. It is actually to work with the same police officers to carry out the transformation of the police from a force into a service, because the police organization is a service organization. And to render service to the public, you really must bring yourself to the level of being a servant. And therefore, police officers, they have no reason to worry about it at all. And in fact, the majority of them will simply remain in the service and may be redesignated so that they fit into the various slots that are now available.
All right. Remember, we're just getting into the conversation, but I just want to remind the viewers that they can send in their questions or comments to the chairperson of the Police Service Commission. It's your opportunity to have a one-on-one almost with him. Send us your questions to 80408040 is our SMS number, and we'll be looking through them as this interview progresses. You did say earlier that this is the first time that the country is going to have an Inspector General.
True.
So perhaps we should outline the roles of the Inspector General and who this person is going to be, what they're going to be in charge of.
Thank you. The Inspector General is going to take charge of the command of the police service. The Inspector General is expected to take care of both the administration police and the Kenya Police Services. So the two deputies will report to the Inspector General. The Inspector General is expected to be the person overall in charge of policing in Kenya. He or she will be in charge of policy, will be in charge of planning, will be in charge of establishing police stations, will be in charge of ensuring that we have got discipline within the service, will be in charge of all the operations that the police service will undertake. That person will be carrying out the responsibility that has either been performed by the Commissioner of Police currently or the Commandant of the Administration Police. So really, we are looking at the person we'll easily call the General Manager of the Police Service. That person will be independent of any other direction, except may have to be given direction when it comes to policy by the minister. Today we call that a minister, but it will be the secretary in charge of police services.
Right.
Will also be given direction on matters that relate to prosecutions from the Director of Public Prosecution. But no other authority or no other person has any right under the law to direct the Inspector General on what to do, relating to arrests, relating to prosecution, relating to appointments, relating to transfers, discipline of the police officers. That is the responsibility of the Inspector General.
All right. This is obviously a person who is going to have quite a bit of power and, as you've said, a very powerful manager. And you're saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that you want to have had this person by the end of December.
Certainly.
Do you think you will have had the correct person by that time?
We think we'll have had the correct person because, as I said, we've already drawn a concept. We've already come up with what it is that we are looking for in that person. And once the applications are submitted to us, we'll undertake the job of going through with a view to shortlisting the best persons that we can find. We'll subject them to a rigorous interview, a public interview, so that the public can make their contribution, because they need to tell us what they know about those people. The public can also write to us in confidence and tell us about that woman or that man that is seeking to become the Inspector General. So we are sure that by that time we'll get the right person, because this is our prime responsibility. If we get it wrong at this time, we'll have done a lot of disservice to Kenyans. We'll have done a lot of disservice to the Kenyan Police Service. So we think we'll have got the right person. And as I put it, our job will be to interview, identify the best persons, 3 of them, for the position of Inspector General, and in the order of their performance during our interrogations with them, and submit those names to His Excellency the President, who, in accordance with the law, will then consult with the Prime Minister and come up with one person whom they find proper and suitable to be appointed as the Inspector General. You can see that process in itself is the kind that calls for a lot of caution. It calls for a lot of sober minds. And I have no doubt that the 6 commissioners who've been appointed and with whom I work will be able to undertake that job with diligence.
All right. Earlier you did say that you want an Inspector General who is beyond reproach.
Yes.
And for this reason you're inviting members of the public to bring in any information they might have about the shortlisted candidates. But how will you go ahead to vet the members of the public? Because you might find people saying things that are untrue or because of vendettas. Do you have mechanisms in place to deal with that? We
have mechanisms in place. We really have thought about that. And we are not doing it as first-timers, because it's been done elsewhere before.
Right.
For example, our appointments to the positions that we are privileged to hold, that process also involved the public. And I know members of the public sent true information, correct information. Other people sent information that was frivolous or that was intended to injure the persons that have been shortlisted. However, as I said, we have a toolkit. We have indicated clearly in there how to identify who may not be telling us the truth. And besides that, when we doubt that person, or when we have reason to believe that person should give more information, that those people or that person will be invited to come before us and give us that information. Give us any documentation that will attest to the correctness of what it is that they are telling us about that individual. We also would like to say that a vetting process also involves looking at other documents. For example, from the police, from the Credit Reference Bureau, they'll not lie to us, from the Kenya Revenue Authority, and other such authorities, including the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. We'll put all this together, consider it, take a look at what the members of the public are telling us, and our assessment of those candidates. And I want to assure you, we do not think we'll go wrong.
Okay. Let's talk about the deputies, the 2 deputies.
Yes.
The Commission did make it clear that they're going to observe the 2/3 gender rule.
Yes.
In this case, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the 3 has to be female.
Precisely.
Does it matter if the 2 deputies are policemen or civilians?
The law provides that the 2 deputies will both be serving police officers. It is only the Inspector General's position that is open to police officers at the level of superintendent and above, and other members of the public that have experience of 15 years. But when it comes to the 2 deputies, we are focusing on serving police officers, women and men. So any of those positions, if say we have 2 women occupying 2 of those 3 positions, the 3rd position will go to a man. And if there are 2 men, then there will be 1 woman. That is the scenario as we expect it to be.
Okay. Back to the qualifications of the 2 deputies. You said they have to have 15 years experience?
Yes.
What else do they need?
You see, you've already clearly defined, you brought out what they require. The 15 years
So
experience.
they pretty much need what the Inspector General needs as well?
Yes.
All right. And the question is, a lot of people were thinking that because of the number of years required by the deputies, it locks out the younger, more vibrant, perhaps participants who might want to vie for these positions, and keeps in place the old guard, quote unquote.
Not so. You know, it may appear that 15 years is long. 15 years experience is not too long. Let's assume you yourself joined the police service at the age of 21 upon graduating from the university. 15 years, where does that place you? 36 years. Mm-hmm. That's a young person. So you are not locking out the young persons. In any case, it is clear that you will not come out of a university and walk straight into such a senior management position. Right. Because it calls also for the experience, and where experience is not about years. Experience is about what value you can add to policing in this country as an undertaking that is very serious. And you are unlikely to have gone through the kind of experience, added the kind of value that we require for you to be able to undertake that responsibility if you have only done 3 years, 4 years. It also calls for emotional stability. Mm-hmm. And decision-making often calls for a lot of maturity. We are not saying that if you are in your 20s, you are not mature. But certainly, you may not have gone through the kind of management experiences that make you best prepared for it. So I'm saying this, a 36-year-old is youthful, and yet would be best prepared to undertake, to go into that position. However, I'll tell you part of what I heard from some of the serving police officers who are young. Some of them indicate, after serving as a deputy inspector general, probably I'll be coming to the end of my career.
Right.
I'd better then remain where I am, grow until...
Is this correct, though?
Yes, it is correct in itself. But if you are a go-getter, you are a police officer, you are well qualified, you are confident of yourself, apply for that position.
Okay. Another concern which I've had from serving policemen actually is that the amount of time between the time you get an Inspector General and the elections is really short, 2 months to be precise. And the concern is that this person will not be ready to manage a police force at such a time when it's so critical to have a reformed police force.
I'm happy you're asking me that question. In identifying a person to be the Inspector General, I have pointed out one thing, that that person will be in charge of policy. That person will need to be a good manager. And that person will hand the responsibility of the actual policing to the 2 deputies. These 2 deputies have been in the police service, so they're not strangers. Mm-hmm. They know what it is that they have been doing. These 2 deputies have many other senior police officers below them. So we are not demolishing the entire police structure, beginning from the constable to the very top. Indeed, at some appropriate time, and we are not in a hurry about it, because we should do things systematically, mm-hmm. we will have to carry out suitability interviews, just to determine who should be placed where to carry out what function. But that certainly may not come now. So what is important really is that one man or one woman at the top giving policy direction will not be held at the level where they are unable to perform if they have not been in the police service, considering that they have got strong deputies who have been in the police service.
Okay.
So we don't see any threat at all.
And apart from Inspector General and the deputies, you're also looking to get a new CID boss and appoint 7,000 new police officers, correct?
True. Yes.
In what time frame are you giving yourself for this?
Now, first of all, our next assignment is the recruitment of 7,000 police officers. And the Commission is at a very advanced stage in making the necessary preparations for that recruitment exercise. We've been assisted greatly by those who have been carrying out this exercise. The Office of the President, the Commissioner of Police, and other senior officers. We sat down with them and looked at the procedures that have been used in the past. But we have been able to come up ourselves with a procedure. Now, the law empowers us to come up with a procedure that will guide us. And we need to come up with the regulations, which we are currently working on. Regulations that will ensure a fair, transparent process into which the public can also contribute. So there are other players that will be involved in this process, because then will we say that the entire Kenyan society is owning it. So my assurance is that, and it's also an assurance to the public, in the next few days, they should be seeing an advertisement for those 7,000 places. And all we want to do is to ensure that we are doing it right.
Right. Now,
regarding the appointment of the CID boss, calling the director of CID, the Constitution envisages that this be done urgently. Not that there is anything wrong with the current director of CID, but all the institutions are being reformed. And part of the reform process is to appoint a new CID boss. New in the sense that it's in accordance with what is provided for in the Constitution. But the current director of CID is eligible to apply and may apply if he so wishes, go through this public interviewing process, and if we find that person or any other person suitable, again, we'll make our recommendation to the President.
I think we should have also mentioned that the current Commissioner of Police, Matthew Terry, is also eligible to apply.
Yes, he's eligible.
Inspector General.
I agree with you. He's eligible to apply. He's qualified for the position, I believe, but he knows himself. And we'll be very happy to also have him go through that process and give the results to those that finally make the appointment.
All right. We'll be getting to a couple of questions about the PSE and what the police service is expecting, especially with regards to salaries and remunerations. But let's have a look at some of the SMSs. Good morning, KTN. I'm glad you bring such important issues of our nation to discussion. Thank you. My question is, as the reforms in police service are taking shape, are there going to be open job opportunities apart from Inspector General for the public who aren't serving police officers? Gregory from Nairobi.
I'm glad that question is coming, because number one, we should distinguish between two institutions. There is the institution of the National Police Service Commission, which is an independent institution under the Constitution. There is also the institution of the Kenya Police Service. Now, the institution of the Kenya Police Service is where you find the Inspector General, the two deputies, the assistants that will eventually appoint the director of CID. For those positions, you can see that directly in the Kenya Police Service.
Right.
And the other positions which are open are the 7,000 positions that we've just referred to. That is for people wanting to join the service as new persons. I believe persons with a calling and a passion to serve in the police service. But when it comes to the National Police Service Commission as a commission, we definitely will employ our staff. We'll identify and employ a CEO, the secretary, as provided for in the law. We'll appoint other persons to serve as directors of various departments. We're actually coming up with an organogram and a paper that backs it up, that ensures that we have a full complement of professional staff that will assist us in managing the National Police Service functions and also serving the Kenya Police Service. So there will be job opportunities. That person can be assured and can begin preparing so that when we advertise, she or he is able to put in the application.
Dr. Kayota says, first allow me to congratulate Mr. Kavuludi and his team for the appointments. Mine is to call on them to put God first as they serve our beloved country and always have the aspirations of Kenyans first. We have confidence in the team. There's obviously people like Dr. Kayota who are expressing confidence. Have you also received negative comments saying, look, we've gotten so much corruption in the police service, you're just going to be embroiled in it?
I want to thank Dr. Kayota for the confidence he's showing in us and the encouragement that he's giving us. The truth is that we must be God-guided. We all are God-fearing. In fact, I'll tell you, we have to say a prayer each time we begin our session. This is so that we can get the necessary spiritual nourishment that will see us through our daily activities. I want to indicate that there can always never fail to be people who are negative. But luckily and thankfully, nobody has come to us openly and said, you people, we don't expect much out of you. But I know they could be there.
All right.
I want to indicate that...
allow me to interject and ask, are you feeling the pressure? I mean, it's only been 9 days in office and already people have so many expectations from you, and some have criticisms, cosmetic, of course, but are you feeling the pressure to perform?
We have the pressure to perform arising out of what the law expects us to do, what the timelines for doing various things it prescribes upon us. But we are not feeling the pressure in terms of being compelled to do the kind of things that are not right and which we are not prepared to do. Mm-hmm. And I also want to indicate that in carrying out what we are doing, for example, you have indicated that there are people who think that we'll be sucked into corruption. There is where I've got to say this very carefully. The perception that the police service is corrupt through, we'll have lawyers, we even have them at this time.
Yeah.
We have got persons who are very grounded in management, and each of those people in their respective disciplines will carry out those duties under the management of the Inspector General. Mm-hmm. So there is no emphasis on a civilian. We are open, and we are going as per the Constitution. If we come up and say we will not like to have a civilian, we will be breaching the Constitution that has brought us into office. If we say we don't want to have a police officer, we will be telling the country that policing is not a profession. Mm-hmm. And professionalism is about policing. That's what we are focusing on, and we are focusing on persons who are well grounded and understand the security of this country. So they will not be strangers.
All right.
And you see it goes much further. We have people in the KDF, we have other people who are experts in security. We don't know who will apply. We may end up picking a police officer, and that will not be an experiment. Mm-hmm. This commission is not about experimenting. We want to use some of the best practices that have succeeded elsewhere in the world. This is our endeavor.
All right. Another question. Congratulations, sir. We have high hopes and trust that police reforms will be fast-tracked. How will the commission deal with promotion in the service? How soon will vetting commence? There was also a question here that there are police officers with good papers and yet they have remained unpromoted. How shall the commission deal with that problem? It seems to be very common.
It's very common and a very genuine concern, particularly among police officers. As the chairman to the National Police Service Commission, I would like to assure them that one of our responsibilities is to come up with the regulations, to come up with the rules of procedure in being able to identify the various levels to which people need to be promoted and the qualifications that are desirable. And we take a look at the officers currently serving, who has served in what position for what length of time. What are their qualifications? Mm-hmm. Do they deserve a promotion? And we will not just say it by sitting in a boardroom. We would like to examine them and give them a fair chance, an equal fair chance to transit to the next level. And I want to assure you, so far we have seen that we have very, very well qualified officers. Some with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, some who have done a lot of studies in strategic security, may not necessarily be at the degree level, but they're very, very good material. We would like to be fair. And we like to have a criteria that is fair, and every police officer should be able to look at it. And when we carry out promotions, they should be able to say, we think this is fair. And not that somebody did something in the background, and you just see somebody pop up as a promoted individual. You see, such a person may not attract the respect of his or her colleagues. And that is why we think that it isn't an easy task, but it is doable, and we want to be fair. We'll get it done.
Okay. Just to move this conversation along, there's also something else that the Commission is expected to handle, and that's the affairs of the police, including keeping under review all matters relating to standards or qualifications required of members of the service, and with the advice of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission, determine the appropriate remuneration and benefits for officers.
Yes. Under
this regard, someone is asking, how fast are you going to ensure that police are paid their second and third phase salaries that they were promised and have so far not been paid. Another unknown person says, what about police salary increments? I think this is a big issue for the police officers.
I want to agree. It's a big issue. And you see, a person is comfortable, a person is happy if that person, while performing, feels that they are well looked after. Their salaries, their allowances, their working conditions, their housing conditions, their protection when it comes to risks have been taken care of. Their families are given consideration when it comes to their welfare. All these are matters that will come under the review of the National Police Service Commission. Mm-hmm. Now, we will undertake all those issues after carefully carrying out a study and coming up with clear procedures. But before I go too far, let me say this regarding the salaries that they have talked about for a long time. Yes, it is demoralizing, indeed, for those police officers. Whereas the teachers, the university lecturers, the doctors can take to strike action. International conventions relating to the police service, our own constitution, International Labour Organization, regulations also do not allow that police officers can take to strike action.
Right.
So that makes them feel really confined. However, we will want to give the police officers currently serving and those who are coming an opportunity to participate in discussing how their pay packages, their allowances, and other conditions of service are arrived at. It should be democratic, and we intend to use that as we settle down. It may not be a one-day's affair, but that is something that we'll want to do. Regarding the salaries, I think the government is already at a very advanced stage, what they were promised, in ensuring that what has been outstanding is paid. Because as a commission, we have been in engagement with the Office of the President, with the Treasury, where those decisions have been made. And I assure you it's such a matter of priority that it is just a matter of putting together what it takes for them to be paid. They can be assured of that. That is being taken care of.
Concerned officer, what are your plans for the graduates who have been all along been underrated by unqualified senior officers who feel cadets are there to take over their positions? To most of the police officers who are now applying for college education, others have masters. What are your plans as a commission to support them? Cadets in both services have no defined scheme of service. Will you develop one for them? You're coming into a barrage of problems that you're just going to be inheriting.
I think I consider them challenges.
Challenges.
Challenges that we like to take upon with courage. Challenges which are very real and therefore which cannot be swept under the carpet. The National Police Service, if we have tracked the best qualified persons, we must pay them well. We must assure them that there is career progression that they can look up to and say, yes, I'll work hard because I know this is where I'm destined. Police officers who hold high qualifications, like university degrees, their terms will be defined very clearly when we have in place a police service commission scheme of service. There is a draft already, and that is the draft that we like to look at, review, and ensure that it is functional. It's been a draft for many years. Somehow something has been happening. We don't want to know what has been happening. Mm-hmm. We have a job now and we begin from where we are. Okay. Towards ensuring that we factor into that scheme of service what we will, the progression of a university degree holder will be like. It will now not be dependent on the whim of an individual, qualified or not qualified, threatened or not threatened. It will now be the National Police Service Commission coming up with a scheme of service acceptable across board, and which clearly defines that if you are a professional and you enter this level, this is how you'll make your upward mobility. These are the other additional qualifications that you'll need to have, and these are the number of years you may stay in this kind of position. So that is also one of our priorities. My assurance is such a police officer like the one who's just asked that question should feel confident that it will not be at the whim of the chairman of the National Police Service Commission. It will be the procedures that we will come up with, the rules that we'll come up with relating to promotions, that will apply.
And finally, as we wind up this conversation, the Commission will also vet officers holding the ranks of Assistant Commissioners of Police and above to establish their suitability in the public service. How soon do you expect this vetting to take place?
The Commission is aware of one thing. Police officers in those ranks or any other ranks are human beings. Police officers must be properly prepared to undertake those suitability interviews. And we need to come up with an instrument of vetting that is clearly understandable to all police officers who will be involved in that exercise. We would like to give them a fair chance to present themselves with their credentials. We take a look at their employment history. We consider their integrity and determine that these persons deserve to remain in the police service or to be placed in a given position. We need to do that very carefully. Because if we rush into the process when we are not properly prepared, I'm not saying that we are not going to do it. We are going to do it, but we'll do it when we have an instrument that guides us in that process. Once we have done it, we'll make it as a public announcement to them. And we don't want them to sit back and say, I will be removed in the process of vetting. We want them to be happy, to get prepared, and to say, this is what I want to go through. Some of us who have worked in the public service have been vetted for certain positions, and we survived. And we survived because we knew that there is nothing about us that we like to hide. And I don't believe many police officers have anything about their past and their performance that will make them feel threatened.
Okay.
So we shall do that.
And the final question as we wind up this interview, how do you deal with corruption in the service, and how can ordinary Kenyans report corruption to you? David from Juja, I think that's a very good question.
I thank you. Corruption is such a thing that a matter that everybody comments on, is concerned about, and would like to see eliminated. One of the things that we'll need to do, the topmost thing we'll need to do regarding corruption, is to be guided by the Public Officer Ethics Act, to be guided by other policy documents that include the legal provisions on corruption, to be guided by provisions in the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Act. Using them, we should be able to formulate a code of conduct. I know there is already a code of conduct. We want to deepen that code of conduct and clearly spell out what it is that will be subject to action. That will be, which will be actionable should a police officer be found to be involved in corruption. You know, there is one thing about police officers. Police officers work in a manner that is very visible. When I walk out of this room, on the road, I'll see a police officer. But there will be several engineers and I will not know them.
Yeah.
There will be several teachers and I will not know them. So one of the things is to tell police officers that you are so visible, the best thing you can do is to do what you are doing right without getting engaged in corruption. But I must add this. Any incidences of corruption reported, any instances of corruption which are real.
They can be reported directly to the Commission, you said?
Yes, they can be reported directly to the Commission. They can be reported directly to the Inspector General. They can be reported directly to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. And those will be dealt with. But we'll be happy if we'll receive them. Of course, there are some which we'll see ourselves and we'll be able to deal with them. For example, when KTN gives us a glimpse of what is happening on the road, and we see it happening, and somebody is doing the kind of things that demean the worth of the police service, surely we cannot look the other side. That is something that we'd like to take upon immediately. We want to encourage members of the public to come forth and report incidences of corruption they have witnessed, they have been involved in, or they have been coerced into, because that is the best way by which the public and ourselves will collaborate in eliminating corruption in the police service.
Thank you very much for coming into studio this morning and shedding insight. I think, is this your first public appearance since you were?
It's the first public appearance here.
Here.
But I've appeared elsewhere before.
All right, thank you very much for your time. We've been talking to Johnstone Kavuludi. He is the chairperson of the recently instituted Police Service Commission, outlining some of the requirements for the Inspector General, why it is so important for the requirements to be extremely strict. And of course, for those people who want to be Inspector General, then you should keep sending in your CVs. Have you been receiving any so far?
We have received quite many.
Okay, and you will continue receiving them?
We'll continue receiving them, and we'd like to encourage members of the public to have confidence in us and continue sending the same.
All right, and that's where we wind up this edition of KTN Sunrise Live. Thank you for your viewership, for your comments, for your suggestions, and of course, for your feedback. We appreciate it. I'm Edith Kimani. I'll be joining you for KTN Live at 1. Stay tuned.